For those of you out there that have an industrial or manufacturing sales team, I'm coming with 5 ways that you can get the most value out of them. This is not just something off the top of my head. This is based on my own personal experience and working in industrial for the last 23 years. So the first thing that you need to do is you have to set KPIs. You have to set key performance indicators across all levels, not just from a goal standpoint. You should have your goals set. What should they be looking at monthly for revenue, quarterly, semi-annually, and annually, how much you want them to grow. But you have to set KPIs from an activity standpoint of what you feel it's going to take to get there. That is the first step and the first key. Most industrial companies just say, maybe, hey, you got to meet 10 people this month, and you should be looking for 2 million, 3 million, 10 million in growth in your territory, which is great, but you have to break it down even smaller than that. You have to look at all aspects of it from a outbound sales standpoint. So are they sending out connection requests on LinkedIn? Are they sending out emails, following up with people, making calls, setting appointments, doing cold visits, all those different things, and set the KPI so that way they know what they need to be looking at from a monthly standpoint, weekly, daily, so they can plan out their day. That's going to set them up for success. But you have to come and set those standards first. If you just say, hit these goals and don't give them any direction, then there's a high likelihood that they're not going to hit them. You're going to be pissed off 6 months or 12 months into it and be like, why isn't my sales team performing? So figure out exactly what you need to do. You can base it off of existing data that you have. You can base it off of videos that I have explaining what type of metrics you should be monitoring and what type of levels you should have your salespeople doing. But it's all customized to your specific industry, your specific sales team. Are they direct employees? Are they manufacturer's rep or independent reps? But you have to set those KPIs and you have to track them on a daily basis. The second step is going to be build out efficient systems and processes. You're probably listening to this thinking, dude, I already have efficient systems and processes. I already have things in place. I'm willing to bet that you probably do not have the best way to measure and track the KPIs. So what I mean by the processes is when somebody comes into your pipeline, into the top of your funnel, what are the steps that they're going to go through? What are the stages of the different deals? Is it coming to a discovery call and then some sort of meeting and then an RFP or an RFQ, and then you send the quote and then it just goes won or lost? Are there steps in between? You have to really look at it and figure out ways that you can break out the data so you can make decisions off of what the data is showing you on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. But you also have to be able to look for areas of improvement to speed things up. That can typically come with automation, systems like HubSpot. We are a HubSpot partner. That is a preferred solution for any industrial company, is to run all of your deals through HubSpot. Not saying quoting and creating the pricing, but at least running your deals through it, because you have the most control to automate certain things and create tasks and follow-ups and things like that within HubSpot, natively within the platform, and you don't have to have any additional third parties. But if you don't have the processes set up efficiently, then your salespeople aren't going to follow them. Things are going to get lost between the cracks. You're not going to hit the goals. They're not going to do the KPIs. You can't hold them accountable to it because you don't have the right data, and then the whole thing falls apart. So these first 2 areas are the areas that I see most industrial sales teams struggling with because they're using either old systems, old methods. They've never taken a step back or brought somebody in like us at Manufacturing Tribe to really audit how are they currently doing their sales processes and their flow, and how are they tracking and measuring it to be able to say, this is what works across the board from an industrial standpoint. These are new tools in the last 12 to 24 months that have come out. These are ways to apply those tools, make it easier for your sales guys so they can focus on what they do best, which is selling and closing and not just inputting data. They're going to have to keep the records clean and up to date. That's their job in it, but you have to try and make it as efficient as possible so you're not losing their focus and getting them pissed off to where they're going to say, I don't even want to use this data. I don't even want to use this system because it's too cumbersome and it requires too much of my time. Third step, you have to have a strong commission or bonus structure plan. If you are a salesperson listening to this and you do not have a commission or a bonus structure plan, I would say you're probably not at the right type of company. You have to incentivize the salespeople with some sort of way. You give them a base salary, that's for them to live off of. You have to incentivize them, put the carrot in front of them and say, hey, look, if you do X, Y, and Z, this is the type of commission you're going to expect. Because I'm hoping that your sales team is hungry. If they're not hungry, they're not ambitious, then get them off of your team because they're just going to weigh you down. Regardless of saying this person isn't as hungry as the rest of the team, but they're really good in these other areas. If that was my team and I'm looking to massively grow in industrial sales, I would get that person out, maybe move them into a different role, get them off of the hunting team and say, guys, look, this is the commission structure that I put in place. You guys have a base salary, go and get it, and make sure that you've given them the tools to where they can reach those goals, but they have to have the ambition first. Numerous calls that I have with clients, I tell them the same thing, which is I will take somebody at a lower salary with more ambition than a seasoned veteran with more experience, less ambition, because I want the person that wants to make hundreds of thousands a year and not just 100,000 a year. The commission structure, most commonly in industrial, if you're selling machinery, capital equipment, it's going to be somewhere around a percentage of the total revenue. So it could be at some companies 0.75%, 0.5% of the machine sale price. And if they hit a certain quota, let's say the quota is 2 million for the year, once they hit it, they get the remaining balance of that to hit it to 1%. So if it's 0.75% commission, once they hit their quota, they get the additional 0.25% commission for a total of 1% commission on total revenue. For the custom houses where you're looking at machining, robotics integration, injection molding, rotational molding, stuff like that, where it's custom fabrication, typically that's something like 3% on revenue, and maybe a reduced tier structure where you go from 3% to 1.5% to 0 on that specific program if it's repeat recurring business. You can do it any way you want, but you have to make it to where it excites the person. So if you have a goal of $1 million of revenue for them to bring in, and realistically the amount of money they can make on that $1 million is $20,000 a year, and that person has ambition way higher than that, and you don't feel like they could realistically achieve much higher than that in a short amount of time, like 12 months, then it's not going to be good enough to keep them hungry when the going gets tough. That's the whole point of commission. It's just like having personal goals that are lofty and make people uncomfortable, because when the shit hits the fan, when you have to continue to make those calls or do those long hours or travel early in the morning, getting home late at night, whatever it is, that type of carrot is going to push you through when you reach those issues, when you reach those struggles, and it's going to motivate you to push past it and continue going. So you have to look at it and say, if this is the total revenue that I want that person to do, and that's realistic, but could they do 10 times that? Probably not. So if it's $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, whatever it is, and then their commission on that isn't extremely high, isn't going to motivate them enough, then you have to change your commission plan. I have no issue paying a sales guy hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year, because I know what that means for my business. I want my sales team to make the most amount of money possible, because I know that means that they're going to be bringing in the most revenue. But creating a structured plan is necessary, but making it to where it's not super greedy from the company, that you're giving back to that hard work and making sure that they can hit those goals. The fourth step is going to be meeting weekly to review KPIs. You can meet twice a week, you can meet once a week, you can meet with your entire sales team or one-on-one, but you have to be reviewing the KPIs that you did in step 1, going through the data and the processes in step 2, so that way you can track and see, is this working? Are they going down the path that week? You do not want multiple weeks to go by where you're not tracking that data, and then you pick your head up and you're like, oh my God, we haven't been doing anything for the last 4 weeks. You've just lost time, and time is more valuable than anything out there, because it's something that you can't get back, and everybody has the equal amount of it. So meeting with the team at a minimum once a week, going through, this is what happened last week, or this is what's been going on this week, these are the goals, these are the updates on the deals, going into your CRM system like HubSpot and putting in notes, working through them, breaking out things into different deal stages, looking at forecasting and how probable deals are to move through to a close, but getting your fingers on the pulse of that, letting them know that you're going through that information, reminding them that they need to do certain things on a weekly basis, but you have to review it. You cannot wait months or even meet quarterly, because people have to be held accountable to the goals that you have if you want to hit them. Now, if you don't want to hit them, don't review the data, don't have meetings, and your sales team will probably still become complacent and not doing what you want. But if you're this far along in the video, then obviously I've said something that's caught your attention, so you would want to keep listening, and this is the key. You have to review the data. Make sure you have a system in place to review it easily, throw it up on the screen, let everybody have access to it, put competitions in place amongst your sales team, but review that data weekly, and then make adjustments to the strategy, make adjustments to the KPIs, make adjustments to what you're doing from an outbound sales standpoint, or even giving feedback to the marketing department and telling them what is working, what isn't. But if you're not reviewing that data, there's no way you could possibly say, this is the direction we should go in. You'd be basically flying blind, and that's not a position that I personally would want to be in. Last, and certainly not least, step 5 is going to be review the data and make adjustments. If you have people set to do 10 meetings a week, to do 100 calls a day, and they do it for a period of time and it's not yielding the results, then you have to immediately pivot and make a change to that KPI and give them the tools necessary. You probably set that KPI based on your own information, based on what you think it should be, but do you have any data to support it? If you know that you have to meet with 15 people to close 2 deals in a week, or 15 people a week to close 5 deals in a month, then that's fine. But if your data shows that that's not accurate and it's actually 20 or 22, and you haven't updated your KPIs, then again, you're losing time. So you have to make those pivot adjustments based on what is working. You have to track all of that information down to the source, down to how many days is something in the pipeline. All of that should be at your fingertips so that way you can make decisions based on, here's the goals that I have for them on a monthly basis or a year, quarterly, annual basis for revenue. Here's the type of activity I think that they will have to do to get there, which everybody always underestimates the activity levels. So once you have them going at that activity, you can look after 30 days, hey, at this point you should be here with revenue and you're not. I was thinking that you'd be able to get there with this amount of activity, but it's not happening, so we need to change the activity level, increase it possibly, or completely throw away something if it's not working. If you're only getting 5% success rate on something like cold visits, if your guys are spending 10 hours a week driving around doing cold visits, but nobody ever gets appointments from it, then you should be reinvesting that time into other areas that are more effective. Maybe it's spending more time on LinkedIn, sending connection requests, sharing out content, things like that, sending messages, creating content on their own that's valuable and sending out. It could be snail mail, it could be going to a trade show and walking it to then go talk to people and not just exhibiting at it. But you have to make all of those decisions based on the data, and the data has to be as detailed and as accurate as possible. The source of the deals, where did it come from? What do we do to get there? How many emails did it take? Calls did it make? Meetings did it take to close deals? What is that time frame? I know that everybody's going to be different. I know that the life cycle can be 2 months to 2 years before you close a deal. I completely understand that. Our clients are in that space, but you have to try and take an educated guess based on the data, make adjustments to your KPIs, and then implement it and then track it again and make another micro adjustment if you have to, every single month, every other month. You have to give it enough time for it to see if it's going to work, then you have to make adjustments to make it as effective as possible. All right, guys, hopefully you got value out of that. If you're in industrial sales, manufacturing sales, head over to LinkedIn and follow me. We post a ton of content. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, turn on notifications. We are posting every single week tons of tips about industrial sales, industrial marketing, how to get the most brand recognition out there, how to increase your revenue, build your team, everything in between. If you guys like listening to podcasts, head over to every major podcast platform and type in technical sales and marketing with me, and you can listen to this while you do other things like cutting the grass. So if you guys got value out of it, share it with somebody else that you know, and we will see you on the next one.
That's the way, I like it, As soon as he stopped talking, you opened the door.
Yeah, and said that. So it was perfect.